when your friends ask you to do math, you say, no, let's do some math, you know?
I'm gonna get it like.
You have a lot of friends after that. Okay.
Is that when I'll finally be using calculus? Math over math.
Math over math. Okay, you have a quiz. Wow. Okay.
I can, but not from him.
Okay. Shh.
I like your hair. You're welcome. Oh my God! That's amazing. That was crazy.
That she accepted your compliment?
Yes.
Because he's not.
You don't have to have a social media
No, he's nice when he's not around Aaron Flowers. He was a complete dick to me. Oh, Aaron
Sophomore
Flowers.
year. It was sophomore year. It was
Guys,
funny.
we gotta move on from these things. You can't.
Aaron
It
Flowers
was years ago.
Good.
Okay. Shh. All right. So you have a quiz tomorrow? Yes, you do. Okay. So relative extrema. What does that mean?
Relative max and min.
Okay. It means maxes and mins. Okay, specifically local maxes and local mins. If you want to write local, remember that's the same as relative. What do you do to do a first derivative test? Very good. So I'm going to put first derivative test. I don't know why it's written that. Okay, from here. Take the derivative. What is it?
How quick is that? You gonna do that for today?
I will. 3x squared minus second term. Set it equal to 0. What can I take out? 3x. What's left over? Okay, from there, what are my critical numbers?
0 and 2.
Okay, 0 and 2. Remember, you get to use this on your quiz tomorrow. That's why we're doing it. Okay, from there, set up your number line. It was so good. So good. Okay, a little bit bigger than 2. Maybe I pick 3. 3 times 3 is positive. 3 minus 2 is multiply 2 positives, get a positive. Middle, say I pick 1. 3 times 1 is 1 minus 2 is positive. Negative is negative. Smaller than 0, maybe I pick negative 2. 3 times negative 2 is negative 2 minus 2 more. Multiply 2 negatives, get a positive. Those are the signs of f prime. They tell us what f is doing. F was increasing, decreasing, increasing. So 0 is a what? 2 is a min. What if there was no sign change? Neither. Very good. So I would say local or relative. I don't remember which word is on your quiz tomorrow, but you should know both. Max at x equals 0 because f prime of x changes positive to negative. Now, the second little chunk of that, okay, I'm going to circle it. Okay, the because is only if it says to justify. Now, obviously, it does not say that on here, but on your quiz tomorrow, you're going to have to. So I want you to remember how to do that. Okay, now, for the relative or local min, we would say it's at 2. Because f prime of x changes negative to positive. Are we all good on that? Okay, cool. All right, next one, I want absolute extrema. What do I do for absolute extrema? You do the chart. Okay, remember, concavity or points of inflection, those are second derivative test. Okay, I'm going to label it down here. But if you want an absolute extrema, you need to make a candidate's chart.
And that's when you plug it into f(x).
That's where you plug into the original, correct. Okay, so for a candidate's chart, what types of things go into the chart? Critical numbers and endpoints. So if I'm looking from -1 to 4, those go on my chart. Also 0 and 2 go on my chart. Okay, then as one of them said, you're plugging into f of x, which is the original. Okay, because remember, I want to know, are my endpoints or my critical numbers bigger? So let's say I'm doing -1. I'm going to kind of show my work out here to the side. So I'd have -1 cubed minus 3 times -1 squared. Well, -1 cubed is -1 minus 3 times -1 squared is +1. So it's going to be what for my value? Close. Overall, -4. Okay, next one, I'm doing 0 cubed minus 3 times 0 squared.
It's 0.
0. Okay, now let's do 2. 2 cubed minus 3 times 2 squared. Well, that would be 2 cubed is 8. 2 squared is 4 times 3 is minus 12. -4.
Minus 12.
Because it's 4 times 3.
Hey, I've done it.
Okay, and then 4 cubed minus 3 times 4 squared. 4 squared is 64.
Minus 48.
Minus 48. How many are left over?
20. No, it's like 12.
12.
Yeah.
Wait,
No, no way.
16.
It's 14.
16. 14.
I don't know.
What?
16. It's 16.
Minus 48. Good. Okay, we're going to borrow 1 and make it a 14. So it's 16. Good job. See? You can always go back to 3rd grade and subtract the long way.
No.
Okay? So from here, which of my numbers is the biggest?
16.
Okay, so I'm going to put absolute max is 16 at x equals 4. And then what is my absolute min? Absolute min is -4 at x equals -1 and 2. Now remember, okay, if I were to tell you, oh, the highest score on the test was a 98, does that mean that 2 people can't get a 98? No. Okay, you're looking at your y value. So my absolute max is 16, my absolute min is -4. It doesn't matter if multiple points hit that height. Okay, points of inflection, that's a second derivative test. So f prime is here. What is f double prime? 6x minus 6, set it equal to 0, take out a 6, what's left over? Which means that my PPOI, P-P-O-I, is what? 1. Okay, from there I set up a number line chart. This is f double prime. It's going to tell me about f's concavity. Make sure you label. Okay, number bigger than 1, maybe I pick 2. What's 2 minus 1? Positive. Okay, let's say on the other side, maybe I pick 0. What's 0 minus 1? Negative. When f double prime is negative, f is concave down. When f double prime is positive, f is concave up. So where is my point of inflection?
1.
Good.
So we have to draw the graph too?
Yes.
Why?
Because it's how you would show your work to show that the sign changes. Because f double prime changes from, and actually, do I have to say which way it changes sign for a point of inflection?
Changes signs.
Changes sign is perfect.
Or do we put the whole f double prime
Okay, that's a great question. You only have to do that if you're looking at a graph.
Okay.
If they didn't give you a graph, then you wouldn't have to specify that f double prime is the slope of f prime. I'm sorry? Oh, you're talking about here? Okay, so part D, put a little star next to part D. There is one like this on your quiz tomorrow. We have not done one yet, but we kind of have done one. So you want to know where the graph is concave up and increasing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my first and second derivative test. I'm going to put them right next to each other. So on top I'm going to do f prime. On bottom I'm going to do f double prime. What were the critical numbers for f prime? There were 2. 0 and 2. And what were the signs?
2 was...
It went plus, minus, plus, right? Plus, minus, plus. Okay, then on my second derivative test, what was my only critical number? 1. And how did the sign change around it? Negative, positive, yeah? Okay, so I want my graph to be concave up. which number line should I be looking at? Top or bottom? Concave up, I should be looking at f double prime, and what sign do I want? Positive, so I want here. Okay, then I also want it to be increasing. What number line should I be looking at, top or bottom? Increasing means I'm looking at f prime. What sign do I want? Positive. Now, if I need both of those to be true, what interval are the top and bottom derivative tests both positive? From 2 till when? Infinity. Very good. So I'd say 2 to infinity because f prime of x greater than 0 and f double prime of x greater than 0. So all that you would be looking for there is if I want increasing and concave up, I have to use both of my number lines to pick the interval where both of those are positive. Make sense? Okay. Go down to number 2 for me, please. We want to know where our function is increasing. What type of derivative test is that, first or second? Okay, increasing is a first derivative test. Now, when I take the first derivative, what rule are you going to need? Okay, it is going to involve chain rule and what else? Product rule. So my u is going to be x squared minus 3. And my v is going to be e to the negative x. What is my u prime?
Oh, it's at 2x.
Okay, no minus 3 because it's a constant, derivative is 0. E to the negative x, what's the derivative of that?
Upside down, like, 1 over e, 1 over x.
It'd be e to the negative x times the derivative of negative x. Negative 1. Yeah?
To do that?
Wait.
That's chain rule,
You have
guys.
to do chain rule for that?
Yes, honey. The only time you don't have to do chain rule is if your core is just an x. Because what's the derivative of just an x at times 1? That's why you're allowed to skip it. If it's a negative x, the derivative of that is negative 1. That's chain rule. Okay? Alright, so from there, set up your derivative. F prime of x equals.
Wait, are you doing this?
We'll talk after notes. So I'm going to do this one first. So I have 2x e to the negative x plus. Then I have x squared minus 3 times negative e to the negative x. So far so good? Okay, set it equal to 0. I'm going to open the door because I'm really hot.
I'm about to grab this. This is really hard.
Okay, so what can I take out of both of those guys when I set it equal to 0? What do they both have?
X.
An e to the negative x. Now I cannot take out an x because this guy doesn't have one on the 3. You can only take it out if every term has one.
Don't you multiply everything?
So I'm not going to multiply it out because I'm going to factor the e out. Since they both have this term, I'm going to GCF it to the front. Now, from here, what's left over from my first term? 2x. Now, usually I would put a plus, but because I have this leftover negative here, I'm actually going to leave a minus, and then I'm going to go ahead and distribute that into both of these terms.
That's what I was saying.
Oh, okay. Yes. Okay, that's what you meant by multiplied out. So it'd be a negative x squared and then a plus 3. Are we good with that? So negative x squared and then plus 3. Now, from there, I'm going to put these guys in order, okay, because we don't usually factor jumbled up like that. So my negative x squared gets to come first. My plus 2x will come second. My plus 3 will come third. Now remember, my goal is to have this completely factored. This does not count as completely factored. And can I factor when the x squared is negative? No. So I'm going to take this negative out, minus e to the negative x, so that I can break it down into factors. So long as that x squared is negative, I can factor it. So negative 1 comes out. Now I have an x squared minus 2x and a minus 3, and now I can break it down into what? I need them to times to 3 and add to negative 2. Minus 3 and plus 1. Good so far? Okay, what are my critical numbers then? X equals negative 1, positive 3. Now, what about e to the x in the front? Does it ever equal 0, e to the x? What about 1 over e to the x? Because technically it's negative. Still never touches 0. So, I'm going to put that gives no critical number. Because e to the negative x never equals 0. Just the same as e to the x never equals 0, e to the negative x can still never cross it. So these are my only two critical numbers right here. Okay, from there, set up your number line. We're going to carefully do a sign chart. Let's say we pick a number bigger than 3. What can we pick? 4. What's 4 plus 1? Positive or negative? 4 minus 3. So overall, everything's positive? Oh, no. Careful, careful.
That's negative.
Look at this little tricky minus. Okay, that counts in my sign chart. So I got plus, e to the x is plus as well, but that negative in the front switches it to a negative. So be careful about that. Okay, between negative 1 and 3, maybe I pick 0. 0 plus 1, positive. 0 minus 3, negative. E is positive, but the negative changes it to a... So what is this sign overall? Positive, because I had plus, negative, and then another negative. Okay, then last interval, maybe I pick negative 2. Negative 2 plus 1 is negative. Negative 2 minus 3 is negative. I have a third negative in the front.
Negative.
So it's negative. Those are the signs of f prime. They tell me f went down, up, down. So where is my graph increasing? Which chunk of the graph do I want? Negative 1 to 3. Very good. Which would be answer choice D. Make sense? You would have picked what? B? Oh, yeah. Okay, now we are not going to do this last question just because it'll take forever. But what would you do if they asked you for points of inflection?
Do the same thing.
The second derivative test, and what rule would you still need to take the derivative? Chain and product. Now, which version of the derivative would you take product rule from? This one or this one?
The second.
This one here.
First one?
Okay, the reason why is think about here, how many things is this a product of?
Oh!
3.
So that's
That would
one.
take you way longer. So if you were going to take the second derivative, you would want to take it from here.
So how are we gonna do it?
So we're not going to do it, we're just only going to set it up. But your u for a second derivative test would be negative e to the negative x, and then x squared minus 2x minus 3. What would your u prime be, though, with that u? Think about it for a second, don't say it. If I wanted to take the derivative of negative e to the negative x, what would it be? Now you can say it. E to the negative x. Here's why. I'd have another negative 1 multiplying down on this negative 1. That would turn it positive. And then what would my v prime be here? 2x minus 2. Then I'm going to put ... continue. Okay, you can do it for fun later if you want. Turn over to the back side. So, for your quiz tomorrow, you need to know how to do first derivative test, second derivative test, product, quotient, chain, all those rules you should know how to do. Okay, back side.
This is hard.
Okay, look at number 4. Number 4 says, if f is differentiable and g of x is less than 0, does that mean positive or negative? Okay, g of x is Okay, negative. It tells me g of x is less than 0. That means negative. Okay, then it says, and f prime equals blah, blah, blah. Which of the following is true? Now, look at your answers. Maximum, minimum, minima, maxima. What derivative test are they wanting you to do? Okay, all these numbers mean that I need a first derivative test. So, do we need, yes or no, to take the derivative? Usually yes. In this case, what did they already give me?
Oh, they already gave you.
I already have f prime. So I'm not going to take the derivative again. They already gave me the derivative to start with. So what do I do after I usually take the derivative? I set it equal to 0. So I have 0 equals. Okay, and then I'm going to put here, in case you look at this during your quiz tomorrow, already have f prime of x. That's why I'm skipping that step. And then can I break this down into factors in the front? Plus 2 and minus 2 times g of x. Okay, let's write our critical numbers. I have an x plus 2 and an x minus 2. What are my critical numbers? Negative 2 and 2. Now, for g of x, if g of x equals 0, it will give me critical numbers as well. What did they tell me, though, about g of x? It's always what? Less than 0. So is it going to give me a third critical number? No, just like e. What's e? Always positive. So it never gives me a critical number either. So I know that g of x is negative. So it never equals 0. So that means I have no critical numbers from g of x. So set up your line chart. Negative 2 and 2. Pick a number bigger than 2. Maybe I pick 3. 3 plus 2, what is it? 3 minus 2. Positive times g of x, which is negative. Remember, they told me at the top that g of x always counts as negative.
Wait, how do you know? Can it be like 0.5? Stuff less than 0.
Sure. So if I did, well, hold on. Yeah, it could be 0.5. No, that's not less than 0. 0.5? Silly goose.
I got you.
So put a negative. I know, I was like, yeah, sure.
See, I tricked you.
Okay, now let's pick 0 in between. 0 plus 2, what's the sign? 0 minus 2 is? But g is also negative. So plus minus minus is plus overall. Okay, then negative 3 plus 2 is negative. Negative 3 minus 2 is negative. G is a third negative. So negative. So if that's f prime, that tells me that f is going down, up, down. So what type of extrema is negative 2? A min, max, or neither? Min. What's 2? Max. So which answer is correct? Answer choice B is correct. Good. Now, someone from the other class asked, what's the difference between a minima and a minimum? Okay, any of you know?
Plural. One of these plural.
Good. Okay, so a minimum means singular, and minima is plural. Okay, so another example of that would be like an alumni. Could be like as many people that went to the school as you want. An alumnus is one. So alumni and alumnus. Minimum, maximum.
But people say I'm an alumni.
Yeah, because they're wrong. They should say I'm an alumnus. I'm a singular
They
person.
might say like I'm part of the alumni.
Yeah, alumni would be like a
They were
group though.
alumnus.
Yep.
It's like they're
Yep. It's like they're just trying to be too smart.
I don't hope you do.
I don't think that's the same, Yoshi. Okay, look at number 5. Okay, we have a function. Derivative is given. We want the x-coordinates of relative extrema. What do I do to find relative extrema? Okay, that's a first derivative test. Do I need to take the derivative?
No, it's already
No, they already gave it to us. So 0 equals x cubed, x minus a, x minus b squared, e to the x minus c.
X minus.
Okay, what are my critical numbers?
That's A.
And
A, B.
Okay, now what about this x in the front though?
0.
0.
Zero.
So x in the front gives me a 0. X minus a gives me an a. X minus b gives me a b. Now let's talk about e. E to the x minus c, can that ever equal 0? No. So it's only these three. Now, from here, any of those that are double roots will not have a sign change. Which one will not have a sign change?
B.
B. B is squared. That makes it a double root, which means it will have no sign change. Which means that it should only be answers 0 and A. Now, the question the other class had was, well, how could I make a sign chart for that? You can't. That's why they're picking letters. So you would have to know, oh, B's not going to have a sign change because it's squared. It has to be the other two. Okay? All right, one more left. Okay, so it says we have a table. Select values of f prime in the table. Which of the following must be true? A, f is increasing. B, f is decreasing. C, we have a local max. D, we have a local max. Okay, so let's talk about A and B first. Where is my critical number? It looks like. Where is f prime equal to 0?
1.
At 1. So before 1, what's the sign?
Positive.
After 1, what's the sign? Negative. So would it be accurate to say that f was increasing all the way from 0 to 2? No, because where did the sign change?
1.
Around 1, right? Okay, so same thing here. This is saying f is decreasing. That means that f prime should have been negative on 0 to 2. Is that true? That's what that means. If f was decreasing, f prime would have come out to be negative. Is that true? No, there was a sign change. Okay, now look at C and D. This is like a AP question. So C says the local max is at 1. Now, is that probably true?
Yes.
Yes. However, this is actually the incorrect answer. So listen carefully. I'm going to explain to you why. Okay, a local maximum at 1 means that my graph, 0, 5 is a point. Let's say 0, 5 is here. 1, 0 is here. 2, negative 7, we'll say is down here. Okay, and then 3, negative 4, nobody cares, but we'll put it over here. Ugh, can't draw. Okay, could my graph go like this? I'm going to do it in pink. Could it go from 5 to 0 to negative 7 and then back up? If the pink graph were correct, keep in mind this is a graph of the derivative. So this is a graph of f prime of x. Would this be a max?
No.
No.
Yes. Because remember we talked about in the graph of f prime, how does this sign change?
Negative to positive.
Positive.
Positive to negative, is that consistent with a max? Okay, this graph would be true. Okay, however, it says which statement must be true. Could I connect the dots where it doesn't cross the x-axis at 1? Okay, answer is yes. Look, watch. What if I did this? My graph goes down, watch. And then it's like, psych! And then it crosses in between them. Would that be possible?
Yes.
What does that make this now? Not a min or a max, that makes it a neither, and then the max happens here. So the tricky part about that is it says which statement must be true. Read through answer D. It says I have to have a local max for some x between 0 and 2. That is the correct answer. Okay, but now you don't have to because we just talked about it. Now, how could I make it pass on the other side? What if it did this? Look. What if I passed through at a half and then bounced at 1 and then stayed negative?
So we're gonna think like it's gonna bounce up.
You have to think about, does it have to cross at that value, or could it have crossed at a different value just close to it?
I
Yes.
think like the way you thought of first time.
No, it's not.
I'm probably gonna pick.
No, it doesn't have to be over. Okay, now listen. Okay, one more question. What if it is stated, read this question right here, that 1, 0 is the only x-intercept? Then can I conclude the max has to be at 1? That would make it a yes. If they had said there's only one x-intercept, it's at 1, then I would say this has to be true. But if it's allowed to bounce at that value and cross somewhere else, then I'd have to pick D, which says there is a max, it's somewhere between 0 and 2, but we don't know what number it happens at. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, it's 44. We need to do at least one graph. So will you pull out homework 3?
That's mine.
Yes.
I didn't fall asleep, miss.
Get out homework 3. What days were you going? Thursday, Friday? Did you get homework 3? Okay, then that and then the notes 3. Do you need it?
Yak. The Disney on.
I need it too.
You need it? And then I also need to give you all the notes as well. Okay, so homework 3, turn to the second page. We're going to do number 5.
Did we already get homework? Did we already get homework?
Okay, Alex, that's the notes from Thursday for you. And then that's the notes from Thursday for you. Okay, so you are getting out homework 3, and you are looking at number 5.
I ain't got homework 3. You need you that one.
You do get a calculator for it. And I don't have another copy. I'll print more, but
Homework 3?
I'll do it, I guess. Yeah, homework 3. Or I can give you this one. How about when I'm done? If you'll just watch. Okay, real quick. This is homework 3. Number 5, there is a question with calculators on your quiz tomorrow, and I want to make sure you remember. So, first thing, look at it. Okay, it says, consider the function, use your calculator to graph the derivative. You have to take the derivative by hand. Your calculator's not going to do that for you. So, what is the derivative of that function?
What question?
This is homework 3, number 5. It can, but you don't hopefully know how to do it yet. So f prime of x equals what?
3x squared plus 12x plus 7 plus sin x.
That was perfect. Good job. Okay, from there, you are going to graph it on your calculator. And I know you don't have one, so just, unless maybe you do. Okay, but I'll graph it up here so you can see it. 3x squared plus 12x plus 7 plus 2 sine x. Okay, so then zoom 6 for a regular window. Okay, so here's my graph. I want you to sketch it on your paper. Okay, it goes like that. Now, question, does it make sense if I graph 3x squared that it looks like that? Yeah, right? Okay, so first question, it says, find the value where f has a relative minimum. This is a graph of f prime of x. Where will I find mins and maxes if I'm looking at the graph of f prime? We talked about this Thursday and Friday. Where are the mins and maxes if you're looking at a graph of f prime? X-intercepts. Good job. Look at King. Okay, critical numbers are the x-intercepts.
Yes, indeed.
Now, how will I know which type they are? Based on the direction that the sign changes. So for my first one here, is that a min or a max? How does the sign change? Above to below, that makes it a max. The next point is a minimum. And what does it ask me for? The minimum. So in the calculator, I do second trace. I'm going to find the 0. And then remember, you can either do the little arrow thingy, which I'm going to do right now just to be fast. Okay, or you can type in a number. So it's negative 0.5754. X equals negative 0.5754. Which answer is correct then? A. Letter B, I want a point of inflection. How do you find points of inflection on the graph of f prime? Second derivative is the slope. So I'm going to put f double prime of x is the slope of f prime. So if I want the second derivative to change sign, I need the slope to change sign. Where does that happen? Where would I put the x on the graph?
Right at the bottom of that.
Very good. And that right there would be your point of inflection. Okay, and then in the calculator, you do second trace, and you'd find the minimum. And then you'd go a little bit to this side, bloop, bloop, bloop. Little bit to this side, bloop, bloop, bloop. Okay, and then the min happens at negative 1.89. So that would have been D. Okay? Now, last one, I'm not going to do it for you, but just look at it. Go ahead and sketch the picture if you don't have a calculator at home. Would you have to take the derivative of this function? No, why not?
It's already
It's already f prime. So I graphed it with my other class. You can see it on my paper. Okay, how many local extrema does this graph have? Count them. 4. Because what are you counting for extrema? X-intercepts, mins, and maxes. I would pick 4. How many points of inflection will it have? 1, 2, 3. Because remember, for a point of inflection, you want the slope of f prime to change sign. Okay? Alright, good luck. Bring your notes. You do get to use your notes tomorrow. You can do it. Tutoring after school if you need help.